SKOR.com.
Reckless speculation.
Reckless speculation.
Yeah, it's a glorious Reckless Speculation Thursday edition of Mackie and Judd here. Boys, so much to get to. Another fun game between the Wild and Vegas last night. Anthony Edwards goes off for 40-plus points. And one of us on the show had 3 correct Write That Down predictions. All happened last night. One of the greatest nights in Write That Down history, which maybe we can get to.
Waiting
But
for the cycle.
Almost.
Yeah.
Needed a 4th one there. But he is our friend from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department. Inside information about your favorite local sports teams. Darren Doogie Wolfson. You can find him on the Scoop podcast. Doogie, what's going on, man? Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday.
Happy Thursday, Phil. Good to see you, Judd. Hello, Declan.
It's good to see you too, Dukes.
Let's
Thank you, Judd. Are you being sincere when you say
Being
that?
sincere, yeah. I always
good.
enjoy our conversations.
All right, well.
No,
you know
I'm
what?
being
It's
very
good to see you
sincere.
too, Judd. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Insincere Judd doesn't
No, it
really
wasn't
care how
sincere.
you're doing.
No, I do care how he's doing. He's my friend. He's been my friend for a long time.
You care a little
I think
bit.
there's a genuineness there.
We go way- we
I
go
had
way
to ask.
back.
I had to get verification.
I've
There was a
known him
little
since
bit
he
of
was a
doubt, but
younger
now that he
guy.
says it was sincere, I take him at face value.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
it's good. Okay, because we've
Thank
had some
you.
issues with insincere Judd in the past. I just want you to know.
He did not rear his head in this episode, okay?
So, Doogie, we'll get to a Fiala injury update as well, but let's just start with, now that we've had a few days to take a deep breath and digest the Vikings draft, and you've been reporting on them kicking the tires on trading up in the first round, your thoughts on the Vikings' overall draft class and any inside information that you've learned in the days now since that might be interesting for fans?
I really like the draft class, Phil. I'm not quite sure I would have gone linebacker in the 3rd round, running back in the 4th round, but I understand they really like those players. I just think you could have gotten those players later, but overall, getting the Ohio State guard in the 3rd round, that was a really good pick. Getting Smith Marset out of Iowa, I was with Chad Greenway for a little bit yesterday. Clearly, Chad, being a former Iowa Hawkeye, was through the roof that the Vikings landed an Iowa Hawkeye, but with that 4.4 speed, he can help in the return game. Getting him in the 5th round, I like that. They fill a clear need, an obvious need in the 1st round. I like the idea of a succession plan at the quarterback position. So overall, I really like what they did. But yeah, it was an interesting Thursday night. When we go back 1 week ago tonight, you think about some of the conversations they had about moving up. Was it for Justin Fields? Was it for Rashawn Slater? I actually think both can be true. That at one point they tried to jump to 12 after Fields was off the board. If they had gotten to 12, jumping the Chargers, the pick would have been Slater. If they could have gotten higher than that, I think they would have taken a long, hard look at Justin Fields. Clearly, if Fields was on the board at 14, I think they would have taken him. They then moved back. I'm told on their draft board, Darisaw and Vera Tucker were pretty darn close. I actually think, though, if they had stayed at 14 with Fields off the board, that Darisaw was their pick. So to move back 9 spots, to still get the guy they ultimately wanted, it worked out well. But it got tense at different moments. They ended up talking to the Raiders at one point, thinking they had to jump above the Colts at pick 21, that Darisaw would not get to them at 23. So all worked out well from their standpoint in the end. But I'm telling you, in that draft room on Thursday night, it sounds like there were some really, really tense moments.
So, Dukes, Mond is the pick by the Vikes in the 3rd round. They clearly at least sniffed around going after Fields. And I think that they liked Lance, and because at one point we thought Lance might get down to like 10, and he obviously got picked by San Francisco at 3. Tell us this, to backtrack to our discussion on Tuesday on the bonus scoop. Who do you think drove the interest in that position? Do you think it was a combination of Rick and the front office? Did Mike play a role, which I doubt? Because I think it's very interesting to get into the dynamic of who in that building has the foresight to say, we are going to need a replacement for Kirk here, and it's going to, actually be fairly soon.
Judd, let's start at the very, very top. Ownership. I am told by multiple people that ownership drove the bus, not necessarily on that specific quarterback, Mond, but on the idea of taking a quarterback relatively high. And if it came down to it, even taking a quarterback in the first round. But that the Wilfs didn't want Spielman to wait until round 6 to take a quarterback. They didn't want it to be like last year, waiting until round 7, snagging Nate Stanley. That I don't want to call it an edict, but there was a strong recommendation from the Wilf family to really look strongly at a quarterback really, really high. Clint Kubiak, from a scouting standpoint, drove a lot of the bus in terms of the background checks, in terms of being at pro days, interviewing these quarterbacks. So certainly Clint Kubiak had a lot to do with how they stacked their board. But I'm just telling you, Judd, I have it from multiple angles, strong angles, that it was the Wilfs more than anyone internally saying, hey, it's time for us to have some sort of succession plan. You guys, this is the Wilfs talking to Mike, to Rick, to Rob, to Jamal, to others. Hey, you really need to take a long, hard look at some of these upper echelon quarterbacks.
So is it fair to say that the way that Kirk Cousins' contract is structured, which it's just all sorts of ironclad money that you don't have a 10-year contractual window to move money around like the Chiefs have right now with Pat Mahomes, is it fair to say that whatever conversations they did or didn't have with Kirk this offseason, that the fact that they're going in and they haven't touched his cap number this year, which means it's all coming to a head next year, that we're reaching the end of the Kirk Cousins era one way or another here, Doogie? Is the writing on the wall for that now, or is it too early to say that?
I think we've hit a point where the Wilfs are a bit tired of cutting those big fat checks to Kirk Cousins. So, yeah, depending on how this year plays out, could we be potentially talking about an end date with Kirk as soon as this time next year, even before this time next year, like in 10 months, like next March? Possibly. Now, let's not forget he has the guaranteed money for 2022, but inevitably there's always a team or two seeking a quarterback. He would be a clear upgrade for a lot of franchises. So do I think if the Vikings wanted to, they could trade Kirk Cousins in 10 months? Yeah, I think they probably could. But let's see, right? Like, let's see how Mond responds in training camp, in the preseason. I know that's a cop-out. I get that. But, like, we still need to be sure, right? Like, internally they think Kellen can do it. But I think we need to see it, right? We need to see it at camp in the preseason. We need to hear some good things September, October, November in practices. We don't have access to their practices, but you talk to enough people over there, you get some vibes either way, that the hope would be, come November, December, that they have a healthy opinion that if they want Mond to be their guy as soon as opening day 2022, that we would start to hear some of that chatter. So let's see how it plays out. But, like, I don't think the Wilfs right this second are saying, hey, let's extend Kirk. Let's keep paying him millions upon millions of dollars, that even to the point of deep down, do the Wilfs really think NFC Championship game, key third down, is Cousins the guy to make that big-time throw? Now, my comeback to that is, how different is the New Orleans playoff game where he made that big-time throw to Adam Thielen late, right? So he's done it in some capacity, but I still don't know if the Wilfs fully believe that Kirk is that guy to make that big-time throw in an NFC Championship game, all the while as they continue to cut him these big, fat checks that at least have some sort of succession plan in place, that if they need to cut the cord as soon as 10 months from now, that there is a plan there.
This is so potentially juicy, and I love it, and here's why. And by the way, it's juicy, and I respect it. So the Wilfs are actually doing a very good job here. And so if the edict to draft a quarterback sort of started there, Dukes, the Wilfs are doing a very good job of basically saying, Rick and Mike, you're signed for 3 years, starting with 2021. We believe in you. Build your thing here, but get us a quarterback too, which is almost them doing what they should do, which is saying, we're going to take care of as best we can the long-term franchise and the roster and the key spot on the roster. And if you're here to develop Kellen Mond, awesome, that's great. And if you're not, that's fine too. So like I love the potential thought process here of them basically having Rick draft a quarterback who might be the quarterback for Rick and Mike's successor, but it's still the smart move to get a guy in the building who can start down that path as well. So I love the two-track thought process here, which is one, you build your team, we give you your defense, right? But track two is if it doesn't work and Kirk does not work and ultimately you guys get fired, we at least have a starting point for a potential QB. It's actually, to me, incredibly smart.
It's very smart. It's something, frankly, Judd, they should have done a couple years ago. That this was a long time coming, that it should have happened at least a year ago, if not 2 years ago. Now it could go the other way. Like I was talking to Hugh Jackson earlier this week, talking to Greenway yesterday.
Look at you.
Hugh Jackson will be on the next Scoop podcast.
Tell him the story about Hugh
Jackson. A lot of Vikings fans are like, keep him as far away from the Vikings as possible. He actually talked to Zim about the offensive coordinator position, said Zim was incredibly transparent, that Zim didn't want to mess with the offense, that once Gary Kubiak walked away, it always made logical sense just to elevate his son, keep everything in place, that if Hugh came in, they would have mixed things up a good amount. But Hugh and Mike had some dialogue about the OC position, but Hugh ended up training Kellen Mond pre-draft for 3 months. So I ended up talking to Hugh mostly about Kellen, but we turned the corner on a couple other Vikings talking points. And he made the point that a pissed off Zim is a really good Zim. Greenway backed up Hugh Jackson's comments when I was with Greenway yesterday that Zim is so pissed off the way the defense played last year that there is something to be said about odd number years, right? Zim comes in 14, doesn't make the playoffs. 15 makes the playoffs. 16 doesn't. 17 makes the playoffs. 18 doesn't. 19 makes the playoffs, wins a playoff game. 20 doesn't make the playoffs. That here in 21, the odd number theme will continue, that Zim and the Vikings find a way to make the playoffs. So what if Kirk has another really good year? I don't think anybody would debate that Kirk was good last year.
He was.
In many ways, Kirk was great last year. That what if Kirk even takes another, maybe it's not a giant step. I think that would be probably pretty crazy to think, but a minor step up, that he doesn't regress. Yeah, that he doesn't regress here in 2021, that the Vikings are in a position to make a run come January. Then in that instance, Kirk is here in 2022, and we'll see how this thing plays out. But yeah, Judd, they needed to have, I'm not suggesting like there's a steadfast expiration date now on Kirk Cousins. You could certainly make that point. I'm not going to necessarily argue with you that there is now a hardcore expiration date on Kirk, but there had to be a succession plan in place. So I'm with you, Judd, that it was very, very smart. I just wish they had done it maybe a year or two ago.
Doogie, how bad is the Kevin Fiala injury?
Not bad at all. Minor hip flexor. Like he could have played last night. It is nothing to worry about. He'll be okay. 4 regular season games to go. We don't even know when the playoffs are going to start. Like we were trying to plan out some stuff in the TV sports office. So the last regular season game is 1 week from today, right? May 13th, Thursday the 13th, they close the regular season against St. Louis. I was curious, will the playoffs start as soon as Saturday, May 15th? Yeah. Or because of the Vancouver COVID shutdown and all the games they need to make up, are they going to push back the playoffs for everyone? So could the Wild actually end up waiting like 6 or 7 days? Like, might the playoffs not start until May 20th? Or May 21st. I'm fascinated by that. But what I'm getting at is, if you're a Wild fan, if you're a Kevin Fiala fan, there is absolutely nothing to worry about when it comes to his availability for the start of the playoffs. In fact, I would not be shocked if he's back in the lineup tomorrow night.
Dukes, I think the expectation right now is to stagger the start of the playoffs. So I think the 3 divisions outside of the North are going to start earlier, and then they're going to allow the Canadian division to finish up and then start them. So I think it's going to be. So I don't think it's going to be a ridiculous layoff.
Or May 16th. So they wrap up the regular season on the 13th. The Wild may have game 1. It looks like probably Colorado. I guess maybe there's still a tiny chance it's Vegas. But game 1, 75% likelihood Wild Avalanche. I guess, we need to figure out if it'll be in Denver or here. Maybe a slight lean toward game one in Denver, but it's looking like maybe as soon as the 15th or 16th. Is that what you're alluding to, Jeff?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Well, I think that's a good thing for the Wild. I mean, I don't think, especially after their COVID layoff and then that first game back in LA, like the last thing the Wild want to do is sit on the couch for 5 or 6 days before game one of the playoffs.
Yeah. Hockey's a dangerous sport, boys. It's a dangerous sport. And so you're going to want someone to help you with risk management. Federated Insurance has been helping businesses with risk management and peace of mind for a long time, since the early 1900s. Based in Owatonna, Minnesota, they are one of us, and they have supported local Minnesota sports teams for a number of years as well. So if you're at that intersection, Minnesota sports fan, business owner, Federated Insurance has a full list of industries they protect at their website, federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. Speaking of risk management, how is Alex Kirilloff? How bad is that wrist injury from what you're hearing, and how long could he be out for? It sounds like multiple specialists and second opinions to me equals surgery. So what's the status there?
Well, so he had a wrist injury back in 19. Back in 19, he saw one specialist who led him down a negative path, ended up seeing the second specialist, this Dr. Graham in the Dayton, Ohio area, that fixed him pretty good, that this is the specialist he'll see, I believe it's tomorrow afternoon. So the Twins play today, a day game against Texas. Then they fly to Detroit for this weekend series. Alex will be on the airplane later today. Then he'll drive from Detroit to Dayton, Ohio to see this Dr. Graham. I can just tell you for what it's worth. Now, it could all change once Dr. Graham, sees Alex. But somebody close to Alex told me that Alex has told this individual that he doesn't feel like that this is a major injury. Now, could 10 days end up being 15 or 20 or a little bit longer? Sure. But from Alex's standpoint, at this point, he doesn't feel like that this is a really long-term injury.
Okay.
Dukes, with the Twins start now, continuing into May and being awful, do you sense, or from the people that you've talked to, that there is any plan here to go and try and get some bullpen help or something? Like because at some point in time, like it's going to go past, it's a bad start to, oh my God, this is off the tracks now. Is there any scuttlebutt about plans to try and at least put some type of Band-Aid on this problem?
Well, the best reliever out there, it wouldn't cost you prospects. You would just have to, pay him, is Shane Green. Shane Green is a very capable reliever out there. I can just tell you, the Twins are fully aware that he's in baseball shape, that he's been training in Phil's neck of the woods at Driveline Baseball in the Seattle area. I think it might be Kent, Washington, somewhere in the Seattle area. It doesn't matter. Pacific Northwest. But the Twins are well aware of that. I can't sit here and tell you that the Twins have made Green an offer. I don't even know for sure if the Twins have had a scout go to Driveline to watch Green throw. But the Twins at least have the book that Shane Green is ready to help some team immediately. So there's at least been a little bit of chatter. Otherwise, does Oliver Perez do anything for you? He doesn't do anything for me.
Oliver Perez, is this my 2003 fantasy baseball auction?
That's what I'm saying.
Perez.
Who else is out there? Who's trading a reliever right
I don't know.
now?
I'm just asking if they're going to try and...
Oh, wait a second. Reinforcements just came in, boys. Reinforcements just came in. Okay. You wanted pitching help? You
St.
got
Paul.
it.
Who's coming over from
Devin Smeltzer has been recalled
back.
from AAA Rochester.
Lewis
I'm
Thorpe
looking for the email right now. So who went back down?
Lewis Thorpe after 5 good innings last night.
Hey, mate.
Yeah, he's been good. I would find a way to keep starting Lewis Thorpe.
But here's the thing. Okay, here's where they overthink this. And we can get into some of this in our Talking Twins segment today. But so they have at first when they came in and they sort of used, they had a taxi squad before it was cool, right? Like 4 years ago, where if one of your 3 worst relievers threw 40 pitches, they just option out and bring somebody else back in. They have jumped the shark with that now. Sending Cody Stashak out like 3 weeks ago. It's like he's one of your best strikeout relievers, right? I'm not saying he should be your closer, but they are so quick. So Lewis Thorpe probably can't pitch for a few days now, but he might be available out of the bullpen in 3 days if you need him. And so they're so quick to take Thorpe, Stashak, good relievers that can get you strikeouts, ship them out for 10 days, and then bring in guys who get shelled like Brandon Waddell and like Devin Smeltzer probably will. So they need to pump the brakes a little on this whole guy threw some pitches, get him out of here. He can't come back unless there's an injury for 10 days, right?
Correct, but there's only so many guys that they trust. Right now, hey, Colome, right? 2 scoreless innings last night, so maybe he's got a tiny bit of mojo back. But, there's only so many guys, Phil. So, you can't keep throwing, Robles every day. So they must feel like, hey, let's just see with some of these guys. But, yeah, I mean, it's I never saw this coming. And I'm not suggesting they're, cooked. I remember 06, right? 25-33. Then finished the season 71-33, end up winning 95, 96 games. So we've seen some crazy things happen. But when you look at Kepler, Polanco, Sano, Duffy's velocity isn't what it normally is. Taylor Rogers doesn't have a wipeout pitch anymore all of a sudden. Although maybe that reverts back to last year. But Taylor Rogers used to have some strikeout ability. I don't see it right now. Colome's regression. It's hard to look and say there's reasons to be overly optimistic, even though they're only 5 games out of the division lead, albeit in 4th place. It's a 3-way tie there at the top of the division. Really, when you look across the landscape of baseball, who's running away with anything, right? The Dodgers are 2 games over 500. The Giants are a pleasant story. The Mariners in your neck of the woods, Phil, are a nice little story. But it's not like anybody. And the Red Sox seem to be a pretty good story when the expectations were pretty low preseason. But it's not like anybody is running away with anything. But the Twins have so many guys that you put a big, giant question mark over. I can't sit here and tell you. And I was preseason. I predicted them to win a 3rd consecutive division championship. But at this point, I don't see the reasons to be real optimistic right now.
All right, we got to fly here, Duke, so give us just a few rapid-fire scoops to close out the segment.
So I mentioned, I think, as recently as last week, if you're in the thoughts and prayers, say some for Tom Curvers, the Wild assistant general manager, inoperable lung cancer. Continue to do that. Also for former Vikings head coach Jerry Burns. Burns, he's 94 years old. He's lived one heck of a life. But if you're in the thoughts and prayers, say one for Jerry Burns. Steph Mitchell, the Shakopee native, the Boston College basketball transfer, really good player for multiple years in the ACC. The Gophers, from multiple angles, continue to work on him hard. The Gophers are in his Final Four. I'm told the Gophers have good vibes. He is testing the NBA pre-draft process, but do I think Mitchell is going to stay in the NBA draft? No, I think he'll play another year of college. I think the Gophers have a really good chance to land the Boston College big man. If he comes here, he would be their starting center. Steph Mitchell would play a lot of minutes for Ben Johnson next season. The Gopher baseball series is canceled for this weekend. A home series at Siebert Field against Ohio State. The Gopher baseball program has some COVID issues. We wonder about John Anderson's future. This is year, 40 with the Gophers. Unbelievable run for John Anderson. His contract is up this summer. I talked to Mark Coyle a couple weeks ago for a while. For what it's worth, Coyle says he would like John to continue on as Gophers coach, that they have had some chatter about a contract extension.
Right on. That's Darren Doogie Wolfson, the, I would say,
reckless speculation,
informed speculation Sherpa here, as we recklessly speculate.
Oh, he's a Sherpa now.
Sherpa.
He is.
Congratulations,
He really is.
Sherpa.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate
Inside-
that. One more, by the way. Mm-hmm. We'll have some news later today on whether Malik Beasley can get back in the lineup for the Wolves. They only have a few games to go, but he's made really good progress. We should know more later today on the Beasley front. And I continue to wonder about the Glenn Taylor, A-Rod, Mark Laurie talks. I think, if anything, the window, this 30-day window, just gets extended. I mean, there's no reason to believe either side is walking away, but the chatter has been minimal since April 8th when all the news came out. So that 30-day window is expiring pretty soon, but I would not be shocked if they just extend the window.
Right on. That's Darren Doogie Wolfson. Inside information about your favorite local sports teams, 5 Eyewitness News, and the Scoop podcast. And you can find him every Tuesday and Thursday on the Mackey and Judd podcast feed. All right. Good stuff, Dukes.
See you, Dukes.
Thanks for jumping
See you, boys.
on, man. All right. Great stuff.